Have you been worried about your memory? Have you found that it's difficult to recall the name of familiar objects or how to do things or even remember things that you know you've done in the past? Well, if so, this video is for you. This class is for you. The reason we're talking about this today is actually that on a call last week, Friday, I got this question, a very common question from one of our students. She said, not, this is not exactly, not word for word, but she said something similar to this. I've had a hard time remembering things. Is this because of insomnia? And I thought this could be really helpful to talk about. And again, when we say we have a hard time remembering things, this could be name of familiar objects, how to do things, past events, details of our daily lives, things of that nature. And so, of course, nothing is medical advice. Anyone out there concerned about your health in any way, talk to your doctor. But today we're going to do some education that I think can be really helpful. We're going to talk about sleep and memory, some general education there, and then 3 reasons why we don't remember. And we're going to talk also about what scares us about all this and what leads us to feel reassured, and then how we remember again. So really, without further ado, let us jump right in and talk about the first aspect here, sleep and memory. Something I don't talk very much about, but this is one of those topics that really made me interested in sleep in the first place, way back when I started a sleep fellowship at the University of Chicago. And the synaptic homeostasis model is really interesting. And when people ask me, like, why do we even have sleep? Well, this is one of the ideas. This is one of the theories of why sleep exists. It's called the synaptic homeostasis model, and we're going to review it briefly here. But the way I like to explain it is as follows. If we think about wakefulness, when we are awake, when we humans are awake, we are constantly receiving a ton of information, and that comes in from our senses. It can be tactile information, things we feel, visual information, auditory information, olfactory information, things we smell, right? All this is just input. It's something that's reaches the brain in the form of kind of like electric impulses, right? And some of this is is important for various reasons to remember. It's maybe important information, so that information needs to be stored, right? And information storage requires 2 things: energy and space. We think that memories are stored in these synaptic connections between nerve cells, and those synapses, they require space, right? And they also require energy. Like anything living, it requires energy. And the thing is, like, if we imagine that we just took in and stored more and more information, eventually we would run out of space and energy. So we need some type of pruning. Some memories that are no longer relevant needs to be let go of, and in that way we can then retain new information. We can create new memories. So one theory of why we sleep is actually that this pruning process, this memory processing, happens when we are offline, when we're sleeping. Similarly to how when you install some new software in a computer, it can't really integrate before, like, turning off the computer, sort of like turning it off so it sleeps, and then it reboots it, and then it can install new things. And I just very briefly remember this funny episode where I was at a high school, and I was I was there as a sleep doctor, and I didn't have a presentation, but instead I just asked everybody to just ask me random questions. And one high school student asked me this question of what the purpose is, and then of sleep is, and I told him about this synaptic homeostasis method, and he was just like, "Oh, so sleep is just a brain dump. Okay, got it." And it was just so funny to me how I thought it was so fascinating topic, and he was just like, "Oh, so it's just it's just a brain dump. It's just a dumping information." Okay, and then he just kept going. But anyway, I think in a sense it's right. Like we do get rid of some information during sleep. I believe this is true. But that said, please take note of the following: the human brain is an incredible survival machine, which means that even when we are scared and when we're sleeping a little, it can still process memories, and we can still function at a very high level, actually. We've seen here in one of our Heard Online's episodes, when we looked at surgical outcomes, that there was no difference between sleep deprived and non-sleep deprived surgeons. We've seen many stories here of members of our own community who have slept very little and still like aced their exams, etc., etc. So although I do believe that there's something true about this homeostasis, synaptic homeostasis model, it's also very, very true that the human brain is super, super resourceful. All right. So with that said, with that in mind, with the little general information there, what are the 3 reasons that we may have a hard time remembering? Well, A here out of the 3, the first one is that, I just call it we are foggy because we slept less. And this has really nothing to do with insomnia per se. If you take any random person and have that person sleep less, I believe that person will find that it is, maybe a little bit, it takes some more effort to remember things, and it's simply because we have less energy, let's call it that. So, storage of energy and retrieval, kind of remembering things, maybe more what I call clunky here, even though, again, executive function is preserved. When we need to do something that's really important, then, the brain finds the resources or to retrieve that information. So executive function is preserved, as we saw, for example, in that Heard Online episode, we talked about surgeons. But yes, storage and retrieval can be a little bit more clunky when we sleep less, and that has nothing to do with insomnia. Anyone can find it a little bit harder to remember names of familiar objects and things of that nature when we have slept less. And B is access to memories is temporarily reduced because we are scared. And the brain is a survival machine, and it has to prioritize things, and I as I was doing that coaching call I talked about last Friday, I came up with this example, which is a little extreme, but I think it illustrates the point here. If we imagine ourselves being like in a panic attack, we're in full, like we're completely we're completely consumed by anxiety. Like in that moment, imagine somebody asking us something very, something we otherwise would have thought was obvious, like, which pop group wrote the song, Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds, right? Something like that. Maybe it's a generation. Maybe this is obvious to some people, not others. But like, if we're in the middle of a panic attack, we may be like, what? Who? What? I don't know. The answer is Beatles. But like when we're super, super scared, the priority for the brain is not to retrieve some kind of random trivia. So we may not remember. We may literally not find it because the priority for the brain in that moment when we're scared is just survival, right? So that's B here. And similarly, storage may be temporarily reduced when we are scared. So if you imagine that you were traveling someplace or you were reading a book, but you were at the same time you were really scared, well, then we're just like less present. We're so kind of we're so we're sort of in our own fear. We're kind of in our own fear, so we're not present, and because of that, the storage of the memory may be less there. So imagine somebody who's reading a book, but just like has to read it over and over again, and it's like, I'm not remembering anything. Well, that's again because of priority. The priority for the brain is kind of survival, so it's not prioritizing storage information. So we can find that, oh my gosh, I've read this chapter 10 times and I don't remember it. Or as actually my student said that time, she had been traveling to Europe, to the same city twice, but the second time she went there, she kind of like, she didn't remember things. She didn't even remember having been to certain places. And to me, that can happen when we're not present, when we're scared. In the first time it happened, the first time we traveled, we were scared, and the brain didn't prioritize storing that information. So now there's nothing there to retrieve because we were scared at that time, right? So these are the 3 reasons I thought of that can make it difficult for us to remember things. But here's the thing. This in itself is just like what I've presented so far. It's just information. None of that necessarily has to be alarming to us. So why is it that we're talking about this today? Why is it that the question of like, I have a hard time remembering things, is this because of insomnia? That is a loaded question. It's a question for somebody who's scared. Well, it's the narrative. In my opinion, it's really the narrative that something is wrong. That the fact that we are not remembering things, that if that to us means something is wrong with my brain, something is wrong with my body, If we think that the fact that we're not remembering something means that something is wrong, that is scary to us. That's where our fear comes from, thinking that we're under threat, right? So with this in mind, if you think about these three reasons, we're foggy because we slept less. If we see that, if you see like, aha, of course I have a little bit hard time remembering today because I slept less yesterday, or aha, you know, I have a hard time can access memories because I had a hard time accessing memories because I was scared, or I don't remember that thing so well because I was scared when it happened. If all that is obvious to us, then it's not going to be scary. But it's the narrative that something is wrong that is scary. So going from there to number 4 here, what reassures us, quite obvious, right? It is understanding what is happening, understanding that, aha, this is what's going on. Of course, this is going on. It's, same thing, many other people have experienced, nothing strange or unusual. That's reassuring to us. And one more thing, which is when it comes to memory and sleep, one thing that can be triggering is these ideas out there, or these implied connections or implied causalities between sleep and conditions such as Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or dementia. But and that plays a big part in this narrative, that if we think that, oh no, I'm not remembering, this means I'm developing a type of dementia. That's very scary, of course. And what I think can be reassuring here is knowing that there is no evidence whatsoever that insomnia causes any health issues whatsoever, including dementia. So knowing that, oh, this doesn't mean anything like that, that can be really reassuring as well. And then finally, number 5 here, how do we find it easier to remember things again? Well, when our fear fades away, sleep happens easier. So then we have less of the natural brain fog that comes simply because of sleeping less. And we also become more present, so we don't have a hard time remembering because we were not present when this happened in the past. And also we don't have the fear that consumes all our attention, so that we have a hard time retrieving things. So when fear fades away, sleep happens easier, and really everything resolves. And this, of course, happens thanks to your willingness to learn. And if you listened here, 12 and a half minutes in, you clearly are willing to learn. You're willing to do this hard work, this inner work, which is fantastic. And if you're finding that this is all leading to where you want to be, a place of peaceful sleep and peace of mind, that is wonderful. Please let us know. But if you find that it is tricky, you're not really seeing things come together the way you would like, then please know you don't have to go at it alone. Head over to our website and find a coaching option that fits you. And if you decide to join, then we look forward to seeing you on the other side. With that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday and a nice week, and look forward to having you back soon. Bye for now.